Ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to alarm you. You don't have to adjust your television set, and there's probably no reason to panic just yet. But I think Wagons are making a comeback. For well over a decade, Wagons and Utes have been going head-to-head off-road, and there's a couple of pros and cons that make people sort of sway one way or the other. Obviously with Utes, you get that capability of the tray. You know, you can load up lots of things, like whether it's for the weekend or whether it's for camping. Wagons tend to be a little bit more comfortable, and you do get the weather-tight compartment of it. It doesn't take an expert to see that over the last few years, Utes have definitely come on top. You've only got to look at the Ranger being, the #1 best-selling four-wheel drive in Australia over and over again to see why people sway that way. They've gotten more comfortable, they've gotten more practical, they've gotten faster, more reliable. They're a generally pretty good thing in literally every single situation. But the Ford Everest is getting more and more popular as well. It's leading its segment. Lots of other manufacturers are starting to get into the party as well. And Ford's new Tremor badge on the Everest, which is why we're actually here, looks to take things up a notch again. And I reckon it could actually get people looking at Wagons again for serious off-roaders. So what actually is the Tremor? Well, in the States, it's been an off-road pack for a very long time, but it's a pretty new name to Australia. Ford's invited us down here to sunny Victoria to find out. The cliff notes are pretty simple. It's essentially an off-road specific version of the Everest, and to a lesser extent the Ranger, but more on that later. The Everest Tremor is here to stay. It is a permanent addition to the lineup, same as the Ambiente, the Sport, the Trend, and it's not, a one-off like the Wild Track that sort of comes and goes. You do get a little bit of extra stuff for your money, of course. Obviously, there's a really nice Tremor interior, which is fantastic. You get a few unique styling packages, but the big thing for us as four-wheel drivers is it actually sits 29 millimeters higher off the ground. It's because it's got Bilstein position-sensitive dampers that give it about an inch lift, and then it goes up a size or two in tires onto some pretty chunky all-terrains. That combined with a new rock crawl mode and the factory rear locker mean that you can pretty much point and shoot this thing most places. You can get in something that's already got a lift, already got wheels and tires. You can option it up with bull bars and bash plates and auxiliary switches and all sorts of stuff that make this something that if you're not into your hardcore off-road, you can literally just get in it and take it across the Simpson Desert. Go and do mild four-wheel drive tracks straight out of the package. It's a pretty impressive thing to see come from a manufacturer that they've actually had a look at it and gone, what do four-wheel drivers want? And, let's get them part of the way there at least. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, great, what do I get out of an inch lift? I generally want something bigger than that, but it serves two purposes. If you're not after anything hardcore, if you just want to hitch up a caravan, you want to go camping, you want to do a little bit of touring and still have a nice car, it's that straight out of the box. But if you do want to go a little bit further, well, that inch increase in ride height already, that size bigger tires, they're also 30 mil wider overall as well, means you can push the limits of these things. You can go 33, nearly a 34 inch tire on these and a 3-inch lift, completely legal in most states without any engineering at all. That does mean that you are going to take some of the good bits off, but it also means that you can build a Tremor to be bigger legally than any other Everest and pretty much any other Ranger, except for obviously the Ranger Tremor and the Raptor, but that's a whole different ballgame. So why exactly do I think that this Tremor is going to make people lean more towards Wagons than dual cabs? Well, there's a couple of fundamental reasons that you get for the Tremor over any of the other Utes. Obviously, that increase in ride height and the bigger wheels and tires are going to mean that you're going to get significantly better ramp over angles than any dual cab Ute on the market straight out of the box. So, if you're driving in steep terrain, if you're down in the high country, anything like that, you're significantly less likely to get caught out, especially in any sort of undulating terrain or any washouts. You're also going to have a better departure angle as well. So if you are dropping the rear end down, you're going to fare a hell of a lot better in a wagon over a dual cab Ute. You've only got to see how small the rear quarters are on an Everest to really see what I mean. That tight wheelbase really translates well into terrain like this, when you're ducking and weaving through trees, having a tighter turning circle is really going to make life a lot easier. You're not going to be doing the Austin Powers 3-point turn, trying to get through things. And that shorter rear overhang too does mean that you're significantly less likely to clip trees. It will be a hell of a lot easier to get through tricky terrain like this amongst the trees in an Everest Tremor than a Hilux or even a Ranger. And obviously the giant elephant in the room, pretty much every dual cab ute on the market, with a few exceptions, has a leaf spring rear suspension, which is phenomenal for load carrying capacity, but coil springs in a wagon just simply ride better. On road, obviously that means more comfort. It's going to give you just a nicer, more compliant ride. So I'm just ducking around some trees. But out here in the bush, those coil springs mean more articulation. And that's not just a silly number that you see on a spec sheet. That means better grip. That means a more planted ride through ruts, through wheel lifts or anything like that. The Everest, and especially the Tremor, is just going to soak it up so much better than a dual cab ute. Another big thing that you notice as soon as you jump behind the wheel of this is just that it's genuinely a nice place to be. You know, the detail on these seats are outstanding. The fit and finish in a wagon, it's more car-like than, you know, sort of the rugged utilitarian vibes that you get in a ute. And, you know, if you are after a ute, fantastic. I personally bought my Ranger because that's what I wanted. But if you're after an everyday driver, there's no arguing that the wagon is a significantly nicer place to be. Like I said, those coil springs give a smoother ride. It's quieter. There's a lot more weather-tight storage. You know, if you go to get your groceries, they're flopping around in the tray of a ute, or you just put them in the back of these. You generally get a higher spec level as well in a comparable Everest versus a Ranger. You know, it's optional in these to go for the full power adjustable seats. It's optional to have the heated and cooled offerings. This thing's got full dual zone AC all the way to the back. They've got their own control back there as well, so the kids can actually sort them out for themselves, which is something that you're not going to get in a Ranger. You'll also get, despite the shorter wheelbase, the backseat passengers actually have significantly more recline on their seats too. So if you are planning on having this while the kids get a little bit older, or you're looking to carry adult passengers, the rear seats in an Everest are going to be significantly more comfortable. And factor that with the third row, you can have full 7 seats and something that's lifted, locked, big tires, straight out of the factory. It's pretty easy to see why Ford reckon that this is going to be a winner for people after a capable family car. And I think that's something that's really going to resonate with a lot of four-wheel drivers if they don't need the tub. Now, while the Ranger obviously gets a tub, the Everest is actually more practical in a couple of different ways. Now, if you fold the third row down, you're going to get a little bit more storage in here. But if you fold the second row down as well, you actually have a significantly larger space than in the tray of a dual cab ute. That means throwing things like ladders, surfboards, anything like that is going to be a lot easier in the back of this versus a ute. And that length extends up to the roof as well. A longer roof means a longer roof rack. So if you're carrying things like snowboards, skis, if you're putting mountain bikes on the roof, anything like that, the Everest is actually going to take it significantly better than a dual cab ute. Now, you do miss out on the tub, obviously, but when you option these up with a rear bar with a tire carrier, a couple of jerry can holders, you can generally put things like mountain bikes on the back. You can put a hitch receiver in for a dirt bike. I've even seen these things getting around with a full-on road registered motorbike on the back. So it is a little bit back and forth. It's not sort of clear cut that one is more practical than the other. So it really comes down to what suits your needs more, I think. So what does this actually mean for four-wheel drivers? Well, there's no denying we absolutely love our utes. They're comfortable, capable, practical. I mean, seriously, the things you can do with one of these. So why do I think these aren't the future? These are. Well, these are incredibly capable. They're comfortable. They're nicer to drive. This thing straight out of the box has bigger tires, lift, bash plates, bull bars, all sorts of stuff you can option these up with. And Ford historically go all in. Once they've got an idea in the market, people prove they like it, Ford tends to double down. You've only got to look at the first generation Raptor to see that. They went all out on crazy suspension and people complained, you know, it's good, but it's not quite enough. We want more power. The next generation Raptor is essentially a race car. It's insane. If the first generation Everest Tremor is this good and it's already selling like hotcakes, I can only imagine just how much more capable Ford's SUV platforms are going to get here in Australia. I reckon the wagons are back, ladies and gentlemen.